We are through expecting you to do your job, and we're going to demand that you do it. That's why I wrote a book called Broken Borders, Broken Promises, to tell that story firsthand. And it develops six points, and it starts with border security. And some of those elements in that first point is to categorize cartel activity as a terroristic threat. Let's go after their pocketbook and put them out of business. And what I want to do at the state level is let's get our new Attorney General, whoever that might be, our old Attorney General's probably got a pretty good idea. Let's sit around and think about our financial laws. If Washington won't act, how can we do that to go after those drug cartels and cross that international boundary and not play games with drug cartels who are chasing people off our property? It is intolerable to suggest that we should accept that as a new norm. And as Commissioner of Agriculture, I've got about 13 states who have elected ag commissioners to adopt this 6-point plan. We know that Washington is probably going to try to do a cram down here pretty soon of this Gang of 8 bill. It was written by labor union lawyers. It has failed to begin with, and we need to resist that at every turn. But Texas can be a leader and get other states to join with us and adopt what this plan is we want in Washington while we're implementing a similar one here. I'm a little fired up about this because I believe in it so strongly.
Well, you know, the drug seizure money, why can't that, instead of it going to the Houston Police Department,
Right.
that should go to border security? That's just one source, but it's
Well,
like 20 million there.
And some of those dollars are enabled by the local units to do that, and you know, we shouldn't have a system in Texas to where cities say we're going to give you safe haven if you violate our nation's entry laws. That's a tragic situation, and we can try to address that as a state government as well.
Okay, yeah, go ahead with your closing.
With my 5 minute close?
5 minutes.
Well, let me use a minute to that. So, are there any other topics do you want me to be sure that we didn't get to that you'd like me to maybe touch on in the 5 minutes? Because I definitely want to do that.
We didn't get a chance to talk about water.
Okay, all right. We haven't addressed the water needs in our state the way we should have. Proposition 6 would not have been necessary if we'd have had leadership focused on targeting our general revenue dollars to where they need to go. That's an area that we've had not the leadership that we needed. I can tell you this, that there is no one size fits all when it comes to meeting our water needs, but no water means no jobs. I will also say that no Texas citizen gets a water bill from the state of Texas, and you never should. Water planning starts at the local level. The state has a responsibility in research and in planning and promoting sound water conservation policies, not in a mandated way, but in a consumer education way. And I've done that as Commissioner of Agriculture and developing TexasWatersmart.com, work with the private sector to do that. We need about 3 days to talk about water in depth, but that hits the highlights of it. New technology is going to be a big factor in us meeting our needs, and state government needs to be incentivizing that. And
Desalination?
Desalination is a huge area. We have about 40 or 50 plants today. Low-cost natural gas is making that more feasible than it ever has been, and the state needs to be using our ability to find those brackish water areas and making wind energy at night, which you can't sell. Let's put those desal plants there, and let's work with local areas to get that done. And one of the impediments of that is the TCEQ rules about establishing desal plants. And I've got my staff looking at that because that's an area that came up recently as Commissioner of Agriculture that we're going to be looking at.
What's your opinion of the structure of how it's structured? The water board, and there's 3 committees or three people, or what?
Yeah, the new structure is appointed rather than full-time commissioners rather than the appointed part-time commissioners. I think the area that's the weakest is there's 2 things. You need more interaction with that water development board, making certain that they're holding those local officials and entities accountable. And one big flaw that I discovered is our regional water planning process. It's an excellent one to say, let's let the grassroots develop what the needs are rather than top down. But the fallacy of it is it requires every concept to be put into the state water plan. The problem with that is it doesn't require you to develop a funding mechanism on how you're gonna pay for it. If you don't have to think about the cost, if you don't have to think about how your ratepayers are gonna pay for it, then you don't have the same effort to go in and to have that level of accountability. As Lieutenant Governor, I wanna fix that area where you have to develop that ability to pay as well. I got about 2 minutes to give a 5-minute closing, so I'm gonna jump in there and do that real quick.
Take your time.
Thank y'all so much for caring and for going through this process. I do want to earn your support to be our state's next lieutenant governor. I want to make certain that you have a lieutenant governor that's meeting with you before the legislative session, not just during it or after it or during election time. That's my way of doing business as a state senator, as a state representative, and I've been doing that as Commissioner of Agriculture, traveling very extensively. Texas has to, our states have to lead again. Our state has a balanced budget requirement. We need to be working with other states to get Washington to do the same thing. And it has to derive from the states, and how I mean that, our state legislators, our senators and our state reps, they meet annually at conferences with other state legislators. Our citizens, and we need leadership from Lieutenant Governor, saying our delegation needs to go and be the leader at those national elements and conferences, and let that be the national agenda and established by state governments again. That's my expectation as Commissioner of Agriculture. And I know that philosophy is so important, and there's 2 precepts that shape my philosophy in terms of what state government should be. The first one is this: I know that our rights come from God, not man. I know that our rights are enshrined in our Constitution. It's the responsibility of each generation to protect those rights in our Constitution. I wish patriotism was passed on in the genetics. It's not, or we'd have the most patriotic country ever. And so it's our responsibility to educate our citizenry about the founding principles that enabled our best economy the world's ever seen, and fight for it every day. The second precept that guides my philosophy is this: I know that the bigger that government gets, the more effectively it squeezes out those rights. The bigger the government gets, it squeezes out families from fulfilling their role. The bigger the government gets, it squeezes out churches from fulfilling their role. The bigger the government gets, it squeezes out the private sector from being the job creator and the problem solver that we need. So with Todd Staples as your lieutenant governor, you're going to have a leader that recognizes people in Austin are not smarter than anyone all across the state of Texas, but that also recognizes that keeping government limited is not just a slogan. Keeping government limited truly is a formula for success. And that's the way that we're going to reach out and attract a new generation of voters today that, quite frankly, we know places like California and Illinois and others have failed miserably because they abandoned these principles. I'm going to be fighting for these principles and doing it in a way that delivers results, that doesn't just talk about hype. And I know that cheap political sound bites does not solve problems. Solutions do. State governments are designed to fulfill those functions, and we can fight against an intrusive federal government because we're going to do our job. Where citizens don't like it, you can have accountability in that process.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Absolutely.